the new stream. This will be a sort of a part 2 to my first stream that hopefully you caught, because it was a pretty fun one. And this time I've got my headphones. These ones are quite cool because they don't go in your ears. They're actually sort of budless headphones. These are vibratory pads which press against the bones in your temple and send the sound through your bones, which means that while you're wearing them, your ears are actually free. You can see that. And I can hear everything that's going on around me, but I can also listen to my music. Let's have a look. I'm just going to log into the channel on my laptop here so I can actually see the chat. Hey, Sam's here. Hey, Sam, I was wondering whether or not I should like message you. You know, I'm on. There we go. We got the music set up now. I hate working without music, but this way I can work and have music. So, Sam, guess what showed up this morning? Woo! So, I'm going to try and get the address out of it first. Yeah, it's funny when you see the word express. I assumed that it would be fast going to you, but it was not. But coming to me seems to be doing pretty well. Oh, okay. Alright, so now I promise that I'll do this with a comically large knife. Oh yeah, that's right. So for those who are not aware, Sam was generous enough to send me a lovely care package, which I'm not entirely sure what's in it. I know a couple of the items, but it's quite heavy. So we've been bouncing back and forth care packages, and it's really fun. You've seen bigger. And it's not how big the knife is, it's how you handle it. If I don't do myself an injury doing this, then I'm not using it right. Geez, you weren't kidding when you said you like to wrap things up. The thing about having a really sharp knife when you're trying to opening a package, it goes through the cardboard just as easily as it goes through the tape, and it's kind of you gotta be careful. Let's have a look here. What we got? Oh, I see green fuzzy. New shop towels. Read me first. Won't read this aloud because, you know, Sam and I's romance is private affair. Well, first off, you have amazing penmanship. Be ashamed to put my handwriting to a letter. Holy crap. Well, thanks, man. It means a lot. After you sent that, we had the discussion that, you know, people just don't write letters anymore, and so... Okay, so that's last. Holy crap, you were not lying when you said that you wrap things up. Jeez. Alright, I think this is going to be too violent. Get to the old faithful. See, we can both do a knife live stream because I too collect knives, and I've been I carry, everywhere that it is legal only, I carry a pocket knife for, you know, duty work. They're a really handy tool to have. And I must have gone through easily 35, 40 different knives over the last probably 15 years, trying to actually meet all of my requirements. Open, durable, holds an edge, gets an edge, stays clean, doesn't gum up, doesn't get, you know, pocket gunk all over it. And it can withstand the elements and not have to be constantly oiled and maintained and things like that. And I've seriously just gotten and skipping, hey? Maybe I'll turn off my my Bluetooth. That might do it. Yeah, so I mean, one that can stand up to the elements is a big one for me because I'm a bushwalker. I go into the wild quite a bit. But the one that I ended up settling on probably for the last 5 years, to be honest, that has stood up to every challenge that I've thrown at it, is from a brand that I don't normally like the knives of, and that's Essie. E-S-E-E. Normally they make very rich kind of knives, but the Essie Zancudo, which is the one that I rely on, is just... It has been my knife for 5 years. I've got 2 of them now, just in case I lose it, because they are just brilliant. For me, I know knife's a personal thing, but whew, love it. So I'm going to switch to that. So if anybody watching didn't know about Sam and I's massive bromance before now, you now know. Sam is a top quality dude, one of the most top quality dudes I know, and I heavily admire his abilities and his message. So naturally we became bros. How long did it take you to wrap this, Sam? Oh, that is cool. Got some antler here. I've never worked with antler in my life. This should be awesome. Sam is a sadist. That is cool. That is super cool. If that were the only thing in this package, that would be super cool. I think I know what this is. By the way, I'm like terrible when it comes to patience regarding any packages. They barely even last back from the mailbox to the front door. So to actually sit on one all morning and wait for the live stream was torture, and I hope you appreciate it. Hey, the patented Sam Towns bottle opener. That's very cool. He had these on sale at the Perth Knife Show, and apparently did quite well with them. Bottle openers are one of my best sellers as well. But these puppies, a little bit more chunky than mine, which means that they hold better in the hand. Mine are keyring ones, like this sort of one. You've got a really good grip on it, and that tactile feel is great. It's got that forged finish. And if you want one of these, you can get them from Sam's Etsy page, which is, I think, etsy.com/au/shop/Sam Towns Bladesmith. And yes, Sam, I memorized it. I wouldn't be a good mod if I couldn't. Ooh, this is heavy. A roller bearing. Either that or a die-cast model of a Donkey Kong barrel. Now, I am pretty sure these are made of some pretty serious steel. I'm sure Sam will put in the comments what kind of steel. But they're quite, it's like sought after steel. You've seen even people like Alex Steele have made things out of bearing races, the ring around bearings. So 52-100 steel, there you go. That's some good quality stuff. And the volume of this, see, my micro knives take 8 cubic centimeters of steel to make, and that's more than 8 cubic centimeters, so I should be able to make a nice little fixed blade out of that. That'll be cool. And it should be hard as nails. Oh, this looks like another one. A little bit different, but pretty much the same volume. That's pretty cool. Is that paddock? Yeah, paddock. Beautiful wood. Got to be careful when you are grinding or sanding this, because the sawdust from it is quite bad for your lungs. But it is a beautiful wood. Absolutely gorgeous. And with the way I make micro knives, that's like the scales for like 4 knives right there. That is gorgeous. Actually, if you'd like to see how this turns out, follow Sam Towns, because he recently did a bunch of knives for a knife show, and there's actually, I think, a couple of examples that actually have paddock on them. Beautiful wood, absolutely beautiful. And anybody who's followed me for more than 5 minutes knows that I'm a bit of a wood hauler. I love my exotic woods. Hence the beautiful specimens that Sam recently opened up on his live stream. Ooh. Oh, wow. God damn. Oh, look at that. I don't know if the camera's going to see this well. Let me get the light going here. Look at that. Look at the patterns. That is going to make some very interesting and hopefully desirable microknife scales. Possibly even like multi-tone scales. I've been playing with that recently, as you saw in the knife I made for my mentor, if you follow me. That had a stripe of purple heart through an otherwise cooler bar. Had a cooler bar handle with a diagonal stripe of purple heart where the pen went. And doing a stripe of something like this would be amazing. Woo! My wife's gonna love that pink. You have been too generous, Sam. Oh, cool. This stuff is really interesting. It's like a machining plastic that is sort of hyper dense, allowing you to carve it like you would something like wood. You've seen Alex Steele use it. You've seen it's called Delarin. It's a lot of millers use it, like machinists and things, because it's so dense and so hard, and you can get beautiful finishes on it that you wouldn't be able to get in plastic without sort of doing like a burn and reseal. And I've never even touched a piece of Delarin before, so to actually hold one, that's pretty cool. I don't have any idea what I'm going to use that for, but you can guarantee that when I do figure it out, it's going to be interesting. I may even use it on this build. Yeah, man, getting to watch people unbox is curiously fun. But getting to see the wonder on their faces. I'm actually really stoked about this because, you know, I've been a fan of your work for so long, even for a long time before we started talking. And to actually get to own a Sam Towns piece is cool. Use it to open my sarsaparilla. Ooh, if I'm not mistaken, this is that jar of firewood, I think. Boy, that's a lot of microknife scales in that piece. Currently won't do too much justice to it because it's in a very raw form, but I happen to have recently seen this sanded, smooth, shaped, and polished up. She-oak, that's it. And on some of Sam's knives, and it is stunning. It's so nice. So very much looking forward to having to play with that. For sure. Might end up repurposing this towel when I send your parcel tomorrow, Sam. Knock the shit out of this box by sending it back. Poor thing, it'll feel abused. Alright, so this is the last parcel, and it says, open me last. to be delicate with it because it says there's a letter inside. And it wouldn't be the first time I've destroyed a letter because I was too eager to get into a puzzle. Alright. Another private bro moment letter. You guys can just sit tight. Not much. Not much. It's awesome. Not much. You can. As long as I can too. Holy shit. Hey. Mate. Far out. Well, the live stream is going to get a shock. I'm not going to cry. Promise myself. This is going to be a treat for anybody watching this. It's going to be a treat for me. It's a huge fucking treat for me. This is kind of like a collab. You know, I was saying I want to do a collab. Excuse the daintiness with how I'm opening this. This is a special moment. I was literally just saying, hey, it's really cool to own a Sam Towns item. Oh, my battery is about to die. I need to plug that in. There we go. I think we're back on. My iPod that I'm using to film this, it's got a weird thing with the plug that it has to be around the right way, otherwise it says it's charging, but it's really not. And then it surprises you by saying, hey, battery's low. Not only did you save the best till last, mate, you saved the most wrapped. Oh, I'm so excited. Far out. Where do I begin? Here we go. But 18 rolls of tape were killed in the making of this package. Yeah, I know, right? I get it, it's about the build. But yeah, here I am going, oh man, it's so cool to have a Sam Towns bottle opener. I finally get to have a Sam Towns thing. And then you drop this on me. Oh, I think I'm into it now. More tape. This is starting to give people a bit of a sneaky peeky. Look at that. Wow. Gonna have to get some lighting happening here so you all can see this. See if the camera will focus. I don't know if you can see that, but this is a blade blank that is actually the first Damascus blade that Sam ever forged. Look at that beautiful pattern. I've never owned a Damascus blade before, except for my cutthroat razor, which I suspect is not real Damascus. This one is hand forged by my boy. Isn't that amazing? And you'll notice that there is no handle. It's pre-drilled, it's ready to go. But Sam has sent it to me as a gift so that I can put a handle on this so that it is both made by he and I. And every good blade, as I'm sure many of you would agree, deserves a name. I think I'll call this Skynir. Skynir is the Norse god who brought good news from the depths of hell all the way back up to Asgard. Traversed a long distance to bring good news. And I think that's a name befitting that. That is gorgeous. The large pattern in there is quite clear on camera, but what you may not see is the micro pattern that's in there. It's like a fractal of lightning lines. That's beautiful. I'm definitely going to have to get some glamour shots of this and pimp it on the social media. Skipping again, is it? Yeah. That is incredible, man. That is some exceptionally clean work too. Ooh, it's going to be terrifying trying to do justice to with the handle. The finished blade, though, that's going to be cool. We were just talking about this in Sam's stream last night. How the best tools, especially knives, have a story behind them. Oops, Sam missed what I named it. I think I said I'll call it Skynir. It's one of the messages of the gods in Norse mythology. He traversed a huge distance from Asgard all the way to hell and back to tell everyone that Baldur was safe. And you and I are separated by a great distance, but this knife kind of closes that gap. So I think I'll call it Skynir. That is beautiful, man. That is a beautiful piece of art. I hope that I can do it justice. I'm definitely going to get some glamour shots of this so that people can see the detail in that grain. and that's going to be a very fun project to handle that. It'll have to be a hidden tang. I've got some nice new brass, chunky blocks of brass from Josh. Might throw a bit of that in there as well. That is gorgeous. Now, I won't go into too much detail about the letter that came with this, but I will say that in my last live stream, I pointed out that if I ever owned something as beautiful as what Sam makes, I wouldn't want to use it. I'd be terrified to use it, because if it got scratched or something, I'd hate myself for destroying a work of art. But Sam has made me promise that I'll use it, and I will. It will also be having a hand-tooled leather sheath made for it, and once it's all handled up, and then that thing will live on my belt when I'm on out doing work. That's a really good size too, very practical size, and a nice thick spine on it. I don't know if you can see that. Comfortable to rest the thumb on. That is a beauty. I'm going to wrap that back up with some oil. But the name is fitting then if it's modelled off a Scandinavian blade. You're going to be storing something as beautiful as that. You want to make sure you get nice and oiled. Just realized that I made lunch to bring down here with me. So that was awesome. That's incredible, Sam. I am kind of speechless. I don't know what to say. That was a very generous care package. That's incredible. That has made my week. And that blade blank has made my year, man. What a start to 2019. I just hope I can do it justice. So, yeah, yours will be going off tomorrow, possibly even this afternoon, to be honest, if the weather clears up a bit. We've finally been getting some rain, and it's a long walk to the post office. Tasty. Alright, so should get into it. There's a lot of bro love going around here. You need to feel manly by doing something. So, for those who caught the last live stream, or maybe following on from watching the last one in post, we've built this little template that fits my wife's hand. It's connected up to a peristaltic pump and a touch-sensitive pressure sensor, which allows her to control the speed of the pump using a technique called pulse width modulation, which we explained in detail. So what I've actually got now, I kept working on it once the podcast was over, the podcast live stream was over, and the problem that I was running into was basically the way the microcontroller reads the information from the sensor is that it passes in a voltage, and then the voltage that comes out the other side is read in as a number. So the higher the voltage, the higher the number. It ends up in, 0 to 1,000 or something like that. It's called an analog in. I heard my phone. Oh, there it is. So basically, we can tell how tightly somebody is squeezing this pressure sensor by reading in that number of the voltage that's going through. So what I was doing when you saw me last time, we talked about using this power supply, which lets me control how many volts and amps go in there. When that was being used, the power would fluctuate slightly because it's plugged into a wall, and AC converted to DC creates small fluctuations. Those fluctuations end up making that number change. So at any given point when I'm squeezing it half as hard as it can go, it should say 500, but it was going between 450 and 550, and it was very hard to actually get a reading of exactly how tightly I was squeezing it. Then I thought, well, I'm programming the microcontroller using a USB port, so I'll get power from the USB port. That'll be a bit more stable. Not stable enough because there's data transferring on a USB port, and that makes voltage spikes happen. So what I've done is I've switched it to 4 AA batteries and put it through a power supply, which I've built, just a very simple power supply that keeps that voltage exactly 5 volts and just stays there and doesn't fluctuate, doesn't move, which means the readings from my sensor are always going to be the same. Now, if you remember, we connected up this motor with a wheel, and I put a little bit of tape on here so you can see how quickly or slowly it's spinning. And watch this. What's the bet? It was working last night. What's the bet? I plug it in, it stops working. Alright, so we're hooked up. This thing takes about 6 seconds to boot up because it's a really cheap, nasty microcontroller. But anyway, I've got my pressure sensor here, which is going to be mounted on the side of the pen. But when I squeeze it, the motor goes. See that? But if I squeeze it slightly, the motor goes very slowly. But depending on how tightly I squeeze it, depends on the speed the motor goes. Basically, the value that's going through the sensor into the microcontroller that tells me how tightly I'm squeezing it is directly correlating. I've got a very simple code in there that directly correlates it to the output voltage or pulse width modulation, the number of times that it's hitting that button like we described last time, and lets me very accurately and with very tiny changes in pressure change the speed at which this motor turns. Pretty cool. And that's basically the entire circuit. Now, if you want to see how that looks in nerd speak, that is our circuit. That's the entire thing. Very straightforward and simple. There's not much to it in terms of circuits. So what my project is today is to take it out of this prototyping situation and actually build the circuit board that's going to drive this entire thing. Now, I've got my circuit laid out. Theoretically, once I've finished building it, I should be able to hook my circuit up to this peristaltic motor, and it should just work. Should. So that for all the drama and wonders of electrical engineering, stay tuned. Now, what I'm just going to quickly do before I begin is do a little shout on social media. Ow, shit. Ah. Thought I smelled burning. To highlight what happened there and why electronics are dangerous things is I had these wires coming out of the battery pack, and there was a short. It was a low quality one, and the insulation on the wires broke, cracked maybe it got too dry, and the wires were actually touching, creating a short circuit. And look, in that few seconds of time, how mangled that got. It started smoking. It was hot enough to burn my arm. If that was near some paper, that could have started a fire. This is why when you see that thing for like $3 that you can buy it cheap on, you know, from China on eBay or Amazon. My electronics workbench with a melamine surface and concrete floors, there's no fire risk here, unless I do something absolutely stupid. But trust your sense of smell. If you smell burning, bail. Find out where it is. Because think about it. That was 4 AA's that did that. I don't know if you saw the smoke. That's 6 volts. Imagine what 240 volts or 120 volts that's in your house can do. Anyway, just going to do a quick shout on my Facebook that this stream is happening. Oh yeah, man. And also, if that had been hooked up to my circuit at the time, it could have fried everything, made me have to start from scratch. Luckily, I've got the design, but I don't have the parts necessarily. And that was just from it sitting there and had pushed the 2 wires together. That's it. And that was enough to melt the thin insulation, and the whole thing started going up. It's only a small burn on my arm, but it hurts. It hurts a lot. Okay, just going to give a shout here. There we go. And while I'm doing shout-outs, get out your wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube, man, because where is it? God damn it, I made a sign. And now I've lost the sign. It has been one of those days. Ah, there it is. This is probably going to be back to front because I think the camera flips things. Yeah, it's probably back to front. Maybe? No, it's not back to front. But yeah, I have created a Ko-fi account. So everyone else is using Patreon. I'm not a cool kid, so I don't have a Patreon. I have Ko-fi. If you don't want to have to create accounts and sign up to monthly things and everything, but you do want to support me, just go to this website, which I'll eventually link in the description, and you can buy me a coffee. It's like a one-time, no obligations donation to the cause. You can either directly help me reach a goal that I'm trying to meet at the moment, which is to upgrade my grinder, which in future videos you'll see why. It's terrible. Or you can just buy me a coffee. Nice, easy, you know, no commitments or anything. And it just helps me out a little bit and shows that you care. So definitely get on top of that. Or if you want to support me even further, you can buy things from my Etsy page, which will also be linked below. Right. the spiel is over. Let's get stuck into this. Soldering iron is on. Somewhere I have a heap of circuit boards. Is this it? Yeah. No, that's not it. They're the terrible ones. Don't know why I even still have them. I'm never going to use them. Always be prepared for your live streams. Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome. Hopefully we can get... Looks like we've got somebody else in. Hello, new person. Hey, Kenneth. What we are making... This is part 2 of a build. My wife is a henna tattooist, if you're familiar with henna. And traditionally, henna tattooists use henna and they snip the nib off the end of it and they hold it in their hand and they squeeze to put the henna out. And by controlling how hard they squeeze, it depends on how thick the line of henna comes out. It's like a temporary tattoo. And so the problem with that is we do a lot of markets and craft shows and things like that. And when my wife is doing that action and squeezing the bag of henna all day, and sometimes if the weather's particularly hot or even particularly cold, the henna can actually thicken and it gets really hard to squeeze. So you get RSI and cramps and things. So I thought, surely somebody has invented a henna application gun that you can control the speed of and things like that. It doesn't exist, so we're building one. And what we came up with is I modeled my wife's hand shape and created this pen that sits like this in her hand. And she'll be able to press a button that is pressure sensitive here, and that will control the speed of this peristaltic pump, which is used for dosing medicine in hospitals. It's a very precise pump system that is designed to move thick fluids like you get in medication scenarios. And it's also very precise. So what we created was this circuit here. And this circuit has a pressure sensitive switch, which the more you squeeze, the higher the sensitivity. And this is just a demo motor that I used for examples, which you can see working earlier in the vid. So it just shows that this motor's speed is controlled by how tightly this is squeezed. So basically this will be the motor that we use. The squeeze sensor will be on the side there, and she'll be able to hold it. And she can do this all day and henna tattoo all day and get no hand cramps because she'll just have this little applicator pen. So there's a need for a tool. The tool doesn't exist, so we're making the tool. Last video, in the part 1 of this series, it showed the design process of actually coming up with this circuit. And even if you have zero understanding of electrical engineering, I broke everything down nice and simply so that you can follow along and hopefully learn a little bit and find it interesting. It's sort of like, man, that Burnham arm is quite bad. It's a bit like, what's his name? Who's that scientist guy? Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill Nye has a theory that everything on the planet is interesting if you look closely enough. And a lot of people use electronics all day, every day, and it's part of their daily lives, but they have no concept of how it actually works. So, while this isn't an electrical engineering channel, this is just a making things channel, I thought I would give people a little bit of an insight into a normally silent world around them that they may not have known. So what today's video is, the first part was unboxing a very generous care package that Sam Towns sent to me, which was amazing, and I highly recommend you go through and watch it and then subscribe to it. The second part now is going to be taking this rough prototype that I built and turning it into a proper circuit board that will be used in the final piece. So that's right. Yep, that's it. So nice and light. The motor itself is actually going to be on the pen. mostly because of the request of my wife. She wanted it to have some weight to it because she felt that if she's not normally used to holding the cone and holding that weight, if she doesn't have the weight, she can't really get a feel for the motion. So I'm making the handle out of this is just a prototype. It's going to be made out of a nice pretty hardwood and fit her hand nicely. I'll put a little leather padding in there, and then this will actually be mounted to the back of the pen, and it'll create a nice little counterweight so that the actual weight bearing on her hand will actually sit here and not at her fingertips, which is why I've got this hoop, because that will actually sit there. And in the design phase, which I didn't show, was actually coming up with this shape. We used ball bearings to simulate the weight of the motor, and she found that this is incredibly comfortable. It looks weird in my hand because I have freakishly large hands because I'm a 6'5" guy. I think it's raining again. But she has very tiny hands because she's like 5'2", and so when I'm holding it, it feels a bit weird, but it's being built for her. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting build, and you'll all get to see it working, which is nice. So the first thing I'm going to do is wire up the battery pack with some decent wire, because one thing you missed, Kenneth, just before you joined, is I was using some cheap, nasty connection wires, and they literally caught on fire and burnt my arm because I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, it's unedited, boys, it's live. So we're going to start with quite a large board, circuit board. Now this is actually spread out over quite a large area on this board, and it looks like, yeah, that'll be enough. Once this is all condensed down and wired up nice and neatly, it will actually probably only take up about, you know, that much of the board. It'll be quite small, but I always like to start with a large board, and once the circuit's done, I take it over to the bandsaw and cut it down. It's better to start with too much room and then get rid of it than it is to start with a small circuit board and get small. Since I'm only making one of these, I'm not going to do an etch, which you would normally do. You might find interesting, if you are into blacksmithing and metalworking, that ferric chloride, the acid used to etch Damascus blades or sanmai blades, is actually also used to remove copper from plastic surfaces. So what you'll often do when you're making a circuit board is you'll start with a straight, it'll be a plastic board covered in a thin layer of copper, and then you'll apply something like printer toner, like laser printer toner, in the pattern that you want the circuit board to be, and then you soak the board in ferric chloride, and the ferric chloride eats away all of the copper except where the toner is, and you're left with a nice printed circuit board. I'm not going to go through that entire process for this. I'm just going to hand wire it into a nice soldered board. So the first thing we need to do is establish our voltage lines from our power supply, which is what we're doing with this. I'm using this battery pack that just clips onto here, and it's all pretty good. So as with the same with the last show that I did, if anybody has any particular questions about any aspect of this at any time, just feel free to ask, and I would be only too happy to answer them for you. Really, this whole process won't take too long. Wasn't intending to include shaping the handle in this particular live stream, but we'll see how it goes. Currently I've just got my little plywood one. which is good because if it means that if I stuffed it up or something in some way got something wrong, I don't have to worry about redoing it or whatever. It's funny, we're so used to it being extremely dry here at the moment with no rain and extreme heat that when I heard, I'm in my garage, so when I heard rain crackling against the garage door, I thought it was a fire. I suppose I'm paranoid because I just burnt myself, but it's that's how long it's been. I forgot what rain sounds like. How's the weather over your way, Sam? And last night's live stream, it seemed pretty wild, to be honest. Yeah, that's the one thing about rain after heat. The rain, you think, yes, it's finally raining, some relief, and then the mugginess hits because the rain soaks into this hot ground and you get this massive waves of humidity. Now, I should be wearing safety glasses while doing this, but do as I say, not as I do. Keep forgetting I've got food. I'm like, man, I'm hungry. Ow. Okay. So, my goal with these live streams, I mentioned this in the last one, but I'll say it again. My goal in life really is not just the live streams, but I want to make things that are as functional as they are beautiful. We all have to use devices and tools every day. My theory is, why not make a beautiful version? Arizona. Woo. Yeah, I hear it gets pretty hot over there, but you guys are, I don't know, is Arizona being affected by the polar vortex at the moment. Been hearing some really wild stories. Not sure how long the delay is coming from Australia with our third world quality internet and somewhere like America. I had to go to America on a while back. I say had to, it was awesome, had a really good time. But some friends flew me over, which was incredibly generous. And I had the time of my life. I went to Las Vegas via LA, and I had a good time. You know, for someone who doesn't drink and doesn't gamble, you'd think, why would you go to Las Vegas? But it was the people, man. Those guys are awesome. I had such a good time. Yeah, I'm glad you're not getting that polar vortex. It sounds just nutty. Like people's pipes exploding in their walls because they're frozen up. And I am a massive dog person, and it's really bothering me to hear that some people over there won't let their dogs come inside, and then they come out and it's like a frozen dog. People should be shot. Cruelty to animals is never okay. In extreme heat, what we get a different set of problems, but primarily I know I'm sitting here, I'm saying this while sitting here doing electrical engineering, but primarily I'm a blacksmith. That's what I like to do. And when you're a blacksmith and you live in a place that gets to like over 40 degrees, or like in Freedom Height, that's you know, we can get over 120 degrees Fahrenheit here. One of the places that was a mate of mine lives got to 49.5 Celsius, which is over 120. It's crazy. But you live in Arizona, you know hot. You know what that's like. But blacksmithing in it is not fun. That's where a dog ought to sleep. If you're not spoiling your dog, are you even human? They're beautiful things. Humans do not deserve dogs, but I'm glad we have them. Almost made a mistake. Sam's always telling me when you're live streaming your work, you don't get much work done. It's true. These are my manwiches. Ham, salami, cheese. Sometimes I'll put some, aioli or something. If I'm feeling sassy. Keep forgetting where I put my phone. Oh yeah, man. Well, hey, I nearly set my arm on fire before. Oh man, more spam emails. When it rains, it pours when it comes to spam emails. Yeah, man. So you swing a hammer as well? I like it. I'm hoping, I'm planning to actually do some smithing tomorrow. I won't be live streaming it though, due to unforeseen personal circumstances. I have not been able to forge for a while. And the heat hasn't helped, to be honest. But my first time back forging, it's going to be a personal thing. I want to just sit there and enjoy it. Take my time, maybe play with some of the stuff that Sam sent me. Particularly this antler, man. That is so cool. It's funny, I bow hunt, and I haven't for a while, but I've hunted wild pig, and the tusks of those I regret never actually doing it. I haven't been out hunting in so long that the last time I went out hunting, or at least for pig, it was before I started blacksmithing, so never thought to actually grab any ivory from them. Ooh. Hammer swinging the Savo. Live stream it. I got live stream on the brain. I really enjoy it. I don't get the big crowds that some people do, but it's nice to have some company while you work, especially when you're as much of a hermit as I am. So you can see here how much closer together things can be when you know for sure what the design is going to be. And I've still got my crazy Christmas wiring colours, because if you weren't around for the first stream, my wife wanted to learn some basic electrical engineering, so I got her to make some Christmas decorations, and she wanted the wiring to be in theme. So I've got heaps of red and green wire. Yeah, it is trickier to get... Oh yeah, I forgot about that, Sam. That's right. thanks for reminding me. I've got to see if I can dig out a Cat 5 cable to include in your care package that I'm sending you, so that you can actually hook that sucker up. It's kind of like hanging out with your boys when you're streaming, you know, or girls. There's like-minded people that come together. Get to chat about the work. Not so many questions this stream, but you know, last one there were heaps of cool questions and lots of chance for learning. This one's not as interesting, I'm sorry, because it's sort of just putting into practice what we all went through and learned. There we go. Return the favor. But, you know, it's still, you get to see it build up. And javelinas. Don't you need a crossbow and a RV for that? Nom nom nom. I think we're back. Sorry the stream dropped out, guys. Just wait for my laptop to catch up. There we go. That's better. Everyone see me now? And hear me, which is also important. Getting people messaging me, oh my god, the stream dropped out. I know. Phone died. Yeah, trash duty. Yep. Ah, it was my gift to you guys to get some stuff done, you know? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the power cable on my iPhone. But it drives me nuts. Alright, back to it. After that incredibly rude interlude by my iPhone. More like interlude. So, looking for a 105 capacitor, which is 1 microfarad. Elk are surprisingly large animals. Just the leg of one is enough to like feed a family of 10. I would love to actually bow hunt elk. There's a guy I follow called Donnie Vincent, who is essentially a professional hunter, and he goes after them. Paid big money for it too. He's one of those guys that goes off into the wilderness for like 3 months at a time just to track and work out which of the animals need to be killed to fix whatever problem is happening. A lot of people who aren't familiar with hunting don't seem to realize that it is a necessary thing to help animal populations a lot of the time. And Donnie Vincent actually goes to great lengths to try and educate the public about that. Yeah, I've seen. Oh man, there's a YouTube video somewhere of this like father and son or something set up in the woods on a hunt for something else, and this full-size bull moose just walks past. Like, didn't even know they were there. Just walked straight past them, and it's huge. And the father's saying to the son, like, "No, don't do anything. It's too big." It's an awesome video, and you really get a sense of just how big it is. What I'm doing here is looking for a very specific thing called a capacitor. It's a monolithic capacitor. You can see how tiny they are. I've got this container full of them because I'm terrible at organization. And they've got, like, the things are tiny, and then the writing on them is even tinier. And I have to look for a very specific one, which, to be honest, I don't even know if I've got any in here. But I should. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, bull mooses would not want to mess around with a bull moose. Okay, so we've got power circuit, voltage in, we've got handle voltage in and link to ground. Hey, it's Techron. How you doing, Techron? I know you're in here pretty late to this stream, but Definitely, when you get a chance, go back and watch it in hindsight to see the first part, because Sam sent me the most amazing care package, and I promised him I'd unbox it live on air. So to do a quick recap of what's been going on, in the first stream we designed the circuit and prototyped it on here for a applicator gun for henna tattoos, which my wife does at markets. She was getting bad hand cramps from having to squeeze them, so I built this, designed this gun that she can sort of, like a pen that she can hold like this, and a pressure sensitive switch that controls the flow of henna using a peristaltic pump used in hospitals. So we designed that, we prototyped it, we got that working, and now we're taking it from the prototype stage and actually building the circuit board that's going to run the device. And once this is all wired up, I'll be able to show it to you working. And sort of, since this is fairly boring work, between, you know, the prototype stage and me showing you it working, we're sort of talking about various things like hunting, particularly bow hunting, which is something that both I and I think Kenneth does. And Sam is quite the archer as well, as you probably know and have seen his amazing collection of bows. I'll show you mine. I don't do longbow hunting, I do recurve hunting. So this was handmade for me to my exact measurements. Fits my hand perfectly. 50-pound draw weight, and made entirely using traditional tooling. No power tools, all handmade by one of the last purely handmade handmaker bowyers in Australia, who has just recently retired. He doesn't make them anymore. This thing is beautiful, and I call it Fenrir. Look at that, just look at that riser. All one solid piece. So for the applicator tip, she was using cellophane cones, and you clip just the tip off the cone and you put it inside of a plastic nozzle. It has like a really thin hole that's only about 1 millimeter across. The peristaltic pump has these rubber tubes, and they fit into those nozzles very well. So it'll still have exactly the same nozzle that she's used to, except she will control the flow of the motor by squeezing on this little pressure sensor, which will be mounted on the side of the pen, so she can basically press with her index finger, and the amount of pressure that she applies, the faster the flow of the henna will be. It's actually quite a simple little thing, but I want to just get it just right, and I figured I'd teach a little bit of electrical engineering on the way, because like I said earlier, we all use electrical devices every single day now, even the most simple living of us. But most people have no clue how it works, so I'm trying to give you a little bit of a window into appreciating what goes into making even the most simple device. Okay, so we've got our power supply, and when I hook this up, it should power up the circuit. Won't work yet, but it'll power it up. Nope. Oh, I haven't connected the ground yet. Oh, I'm a moron. This is why it's live. We're live, folks. Yeah, you need to connect both power and ground in order for a circuit to work. Yeah, I love my archery. I'm a big archery fan, and unfortunately haven't had much chance to do it since living in the suburbs. For a while, at the end of 2017, I got to stay on my granddad's farm for a few weeks and help him out after some surgery. And I took my, not the bow I just showed you, but another one that is a takedown recurve bow. The reason I took that is it's easier to take across on a flight because it all packs up into a nice case, like an attache case. And I got to do some rabbit hunting while I was down there, which is good. Because rabbits are a big problem down there. There you go, look at that. It powers up. And didn't catch on fire. Hey, V-Man. It is the Vincent. What we're doing is building a henna application gun. It's a thing that didn't exist. Yeah, this is the henna gun. Yeah. So, if you watched the last live stream, you saw me designing the circuit for this. What we're doing now, it's a fairly boring process to watch, but I figured I'd show you anyway. It's taking it from the rough prototype and turning it into the real deal that's actually going to be in the device. So we're building the real circuit. And I just built the power supply and microcontroller, powered it up, and it worked. So it's a good start. Next, I'm going to build the basically an on-off switch for it, nice and simple, and then connect the pressure button circuit, and then the motor control circuit, and then we'll be done. Thank you everyone for joining in. I know my channel is quite young, but I appreciate all of you for taking the time. It's always good to handle out. Yeah, this is a PCB. This is a prototype PCB, so it's basically just blank and you can put whatever you want on it quite easily. Currently I'm putting these little terminal blocks on, which are quite cool, because basically what you can do is, I had a screwdriver here, I'm terrible for putting things down and then not seeing where I put them here. Instead of actually permanently having wires coming off that will go to the motor and the sensor, have these little terminal blocks. They've got a screw in the top, and you feed a wire into the hole, and you screw it down and clamp it down, and it allows you to take the wires in and out, but creates a connection. It's a handy little way to be able to debug things. Since this is handmade, the odds are at some point in the future, the unforeseen future, I will have to modify or expand or otherwise alter this thing, and it will be made, you know, orders of magnitude easier to do if I sort of think ahead first and put in adjustable things like this. You always want to hope for the best and plan for the worst, they say. I have never worked production with electrical engineering. I have built things as part of my job before. I used to work in the gambling industry, and one of the jobs there was I had to set up trade show stalls, and I would build things like DMX lighting controllers that would interface with the poker machines, so that when a jackpot went off on one of the poker machines on this trade show stall, all of the lights on the trade show stall would go nuts. You know, stuff like that. It was kind of fun, but that's the only real extent of my actual industry level of electrical engineering. How about you, V-Man? I think if I had ever worked production in a factory, I would work a lot faster than this. I am slow. Another thing that I have a tendency to forget to do is label things on my circuit board. So I hope you can see there, I put an S on one and an M on the other. So one's for the sensor, one's for the motor. You build elevators. How uplifting. That's what you get on this channel. Dad jokes. There is a company, I'm not sure if they're based in Brisbane, but they operate a lot in Brisbane, that do elevators. And the company is called Schindler Lifts. And, well, I think it's just called Schindler, but they build lifts, which is the British English version of elevator, I think. Or maybe it's the American English, I can't remember. But the funny thing is, like, Schindler's Lifts. But here's the funny thing, they've been doing that since before the movie came out. And I know the movie was based on a memoir, but the memoir wasn't called Schindler's List. And to be honest, that just makes it even funnier to me. Not that the story of Schindler's List is funny, but, you know, the connection is funny. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the skipping, I'm sorry. I wish I did. I've never not had problems with internet at this place. Think of it this way, every so often you get to have a break from hearing me talk. No worries, V-Man. Oh, fiddly, fiddly. Got it. Yep, Sam's a mod now, don't mess. I'm gonna have to start my podcast with, "Hi, Sam's followers." And while you're hitting the like button, why not buy me a coffee and help support my crazy maniacal endeavors? Just go to coffee.com/Valhalla Ironworks. Where else do you get finger guns and dad jokes at this time of the day? And yes, that is a handwritten sign. Got out the old Faber-Castell, spared no expense. That's what you get on this channel. Nothing but quality when I'm begging for money. Okay. Almost finished the sensor mounting. I'm terrible at remembering to install switches, power switches, in my things that I build, because I'm so used to using this power supply that does it all for me that I just forget. So I cannot forget in this one, because it's definitely going to need a power switch. Hey, how's it going, Tyrenius? That is my good friend, Adric. There's all sorts of things that I can't do. Primarily, I can't bowl. Seems like a funny thing, but I can't bowl. We do lawn bowls okay, but 10-pin bowling. There he is. I think there's an extra space in there. Nah, fired as a mod. Okay, that's the sensor wired up. So, all that's left now, I can get rid of that. Oh, I'm a moron. I wired up the wrong thing. It can be fixed. Oh, that's not good. This is what happens when you get distracted by people messaging you. I did it again. I think it's automatically trying to put my YouTube username in the spot. It's trying to be helpful and is actually, it's like standard Microsoft stuff. Tyranius, I'm surprised you're not packing ready to go to that big, is it like GDC or something that's coming up over in San Fran? Tyranius, the user there, the lay people in the audience may not know, is a famous video game developer. He made the game, or he and his team, I should say, made the game Think of the Children, which is available on PC, Switch, and a million other places. Yeah, none of us do, man. Think of the Children is actually a hilarious party game, which anyone with kids would be able to understand. Basically, you're at a picnic or a gathering, and your kids all start trying to kill themselves, like kids do. Running around, in traffic, jumping in pools, and you've got to try and keep them alive. And that just makes them try harder. Hey, that works. Oh, jeez, man. Yeah. Ethan, the other game dev that was at that blacksmithing day with us, Tyranius, was he's on his way. He's booked his tickets. He's been working with some game that's been kickstarted recently. I don't know the details. I'm terrible at keeping up with people's comings and goings. I can't even remember my own schedule half the time. Because back in my most recent past life, as not many of you will know, I was a game developer. Still technically am, I suppose. Yeah, that's right, Sam. Just, rip the safety labels off everything and let nature take its course. If they survive childhood, then they are worthy of being an adult. So Adric is still in the trenches with video game development. Brave man that he is. I just can't do it anymore. Trying to please that many people at once is an impossible fucking task. Nice. I've still got my old forge for you, Adric, if you want it. now that I've upgraded mine. Odd One still works just fine. You've used it. Okay, so we've got the sensor all wired up on the first port. The wires will go to the sensor. Yeah, that's right. Not long now. Not long at all. Alright, I'm going to do that power switch before I forget. I'm a real stickler when it comes to switches and buttons in my project. They gotta feel nice. Like, a lot of people are like, yeah, it works, I'll put whatever in there. But for me, man, if you ask me, there is an art form to the design of buttons. And if I go to a supplier, I won't order buttons online or switches. I've got to feel it. That nice little throw, it's got to feel right. Otherwise, why are you even bothering, you know? And so I only have quite nice ones in my collection because of that. And oftentimes the nice ones are, you know, cheaper than the ones that feel terrible. But if you ask me, you've got to have a switch that feels nice. Because I'm a nerd, I realize every so often I realize that there is a word that doesn't exist that needs to. Like, there's a thing that people need to describe or doesn't exist for it. And so I take it upon myself to invent that word. Most recently I came up with the word textivate. And I do all the proper Latin derivative to get these words. But textivate is the art of searching through a piece of wood to find the best section of wood grain. Because it was something that I found myself doing for hours when I was working on a project. And then I realized there's no word for it. And so I came out. Textivate, you break it down into Latin, I can't remember what the Latin words are, but it basically means searching for pattern. And my first word that I ever invented was adlevegetation. Adlevegetation is that strange, inexplicable feeling of pleasure you get from certain activities that there's no logical reason that it should give you pleasure. Things like peeling that protective film off of a new phone or TV set or something. When you're packing things into boxes and something fits in a box so perfectly that it actually creates like an air cushion, you know, things like that. That for some reason it just gives you the fizz and you just want to, it feels great. You know, sometimes you get, you unbox a new computer monitor and it's got like 12 different ones of those peel-off things, and you kind of just want to like put on some Teddy Pendergrass and light some candles and, you know, pour some wine, make an evening of it, because it's just like, ooh. But switches and buttons are really where it is. If you ever use something, it's just a real joy to flick that switch, you know. And then there's switches that are like nothing, like light switches in a house. They don't feel good just to flick. And buttons that have a nice click to them is another good example of that. But yeah, I'm all about the good tactile sensation when it comes to switches and buttons. Otherwise, like, what's even the point? So something that feels inexplicably good is adlevegetative. I even submitted it to Oxford, showing all of my work, finding out the Latin derivative and things. Yeah, no worries, Techron. Thanks for popping by. It means a lot to a new YouTube streamer like me. Yeah, I submitted it to Oxford, and they never got back to me. Didn't expect them to be honest. I'll just keep making up my words. a bit of a language nerd, as you can probably tell. Try and learn as many languages as possible and such. Like I speak a little bit of Russian, a little bit of French, a little bit of Mandarin Chinese, a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of German. Not really enough to hold down solid conversations, but enough to be able to, you know, get through a town centre. And so when I have an opportunity to create a new word out of Latin, I'm going to take that opportunity. It will give you great. I like it. He tried, and that's what matters. Alright, power switch. That needs some heat shrink. Keep everything nice and neat, safe. Heat shrink is really cool stuff. We went through it in the last episode, but it's this sort of rubbery stuff you put wherever there's like soldered connections on your wires. You slip this stuff down and kind of sleeve it, and then you expose it to heat, and the rubber shrinks down and forms a seal around the soldered area, keeping it electrically insulated. It is magical stuff. And normally I have a Bic lighter down here with me, but I'm going old school because I don't want to run upstairs and look for a Bic lighter. Recently I could have just taken this outside, and that probably would have been enough to heat shrink it. There you go. Yeah, there's a V in it, Sam. Adler vegetation. But to be honest, everyone in the room knew what you were saying, and that's all that matters. It's funny how language evolves over time. It's funny, even like in Australia, we have a thing that happens every year at Christmas. It's the Queen's speech. She goes on television, sits there at a little desk, Buckingham Palace. Hello, and Merry Christmas to you all. You know, it says her little fucking Christmas wishes, telling everybody to have a blessed New Year and all that sort of thing. But the thing is, she's been alive for so long now that her English has changed. She has lived long enough to see the English language change, and she has changed with it. So the Queen's speech that happened when I was born is very different sounding to the Queen's speech that you'd hear nowadays. And it's still from the same woman, it's just English standards have changed, and being a monarch, she's changed with them. Still very posh sounding, obviously. She is the Queen after all. But it's an interesting little fact. Because and I apologize. Ah, Sam, you're a nut. Yeet is part of the new youth parlance. I only just learnt this recently. It's a meme thing. It's online that kids are doing. That yeet is to throw something suddenly and randomly. Okay, so I'll show you this working. I'll get the lights down low so you can actually see it. This is going to be very anticlimactic, but basically my power switch works. Starts the whole circuit up. Yay! Very simple, but hey, it's something at least. It's better than just sitting here watching me solder, or solder as you Americans call it. Crazy Americans with your crazy spellings of things and pronunciations. Okay, final piece of the puzzle. Very cool. Means we're almost done, guys. Yes, Adric, or Tyrenius, as you see him, is very down with the lingo that the kids are using. I've had to defer to him multiple times to say, like, what on earth does this mean? Or I'll show him something that I think is hilarious and new, and he's like, I saw that 18 months ago. Okay. This goes here. Good, we didn't make too bad a time, to be honest. You guys will get to see this actually fire up and start working. And then it'll just be a matter of mounting all of it into the pen. I suppose wherever you're from is the normal thing, and whatever anybody else does is the weird, strange, foreign thing. It's a perspective thing. Don't forget, though, America was founded by the British. I'm sure Sam could rant on about that for quite a while. But to be fair, Australia does a lot of things very weird. Sometimes it's weird good though. Like there's some extreme flooding, horrible flooding happening up north at the moment. And we sent the military in to rescue the kangaroos and wallabies. The photos on social media are great. I've heard How's Your Father, like it's a bit How's Your Father. Maybe it's like a derivative of that, Tyrenius? because saying something's a bit "how's your father" is very much a British idiom, from, I believe, like East End of London, Cockney. Which in terms of language is like a whole other world. Things like Cockney rhyming slang that they have. Wild. From a linguistics perspective, it's just absolutely crazy. Yeah, the thing is, like, I'm very well aware that "I'm not here to fuck spiders" phrase exists. I've never heard anybody use it unironically. Like, Australians get a weird joy out of mocking themselves. Like, our self-deprecation of humour is legendary. But, so we'll often try and sound more Australian just as a joke. You tell him, Kenneth. Boy, it's going to be hilarious if I go through all of this, fire it up to show you guys, and then it doesn't work. It'll be a bit like how the last stream ended. Maybe I could just make it a trope. Do a 2-hour live stream showing this horrendously intricate process of how to build something, only to have it all completely collapse. Okay, now we get somewhere. Yeah, tarantulas aren't nice. Big hairy-legged motherfuckers. One good thing about this circuit board having the screw terminals for attaching the motor and the sensor is that if you change the polarity on a motor, like if you... damn magnets. If you plug voltage into this and ground into this, it's going to spin one way, but if you put voltage into this and ground into this, it'll spin the other way. So if I mount this whole thing up and install it and everything, and it spins the wrong way and sucks instead of pumps, I just swap the wires around. I don't actually have to resolder anything. I thought redbacks and black widows were actually different species of spider, though, Sam. Like, same family, but different species. I could be wrong, though. I'm no spider expert. We even have a Australian folk song about having a chance encounter with a redback spider in an outdoor toilet, which everybody used to have back in the day here, and everywhere, I suppose. There's a redback on the toilet seat when I was there last night. I didn't see him sitting there, but I sure did feel his bite. It's a good song. And it comes with a very astute warning. Check your toilet seat. Oh really? Was it an outdoor dunny? Or just a regular dunny? A dunny, for all you Yanks in the audience, is a toilet. Oof. Oh wow, so were they blinded? Like you can get, a lot of people don't realize this, but you can actually get sunburn on your retinas and it can cause quite serious damage. It's actually why you see blind people wearing sunglasses all the time, because you think, why are they wearing sunglasses? A lot of people think it's an aesthetic thing because their eyes are often like a little bit skewy, but it's because if they keep their eyes open, they can still burn their retinas. Oh, that's rough. Alright, last piece being put in. Very exciting. And then we can fire this up and watch it not work. Man, just when you think your day's that bad, being stung by a blue-ringed octopus. Okay. There we go, look at that. Nice, neat, compact. Fitted that whole board into this little space here for comparison. Nice and neat. So what I'll do, open these up. Sensor attaches here. And I'll still use my little test motor so that you guys can actually see the motion more clearly, because the peristaltic motor is the one that the final product will be using. However, it's all enclosed, so you actually can't see it spinning. Okay, so What's the bet this doesn't work? Place your bets now. Okay, so I've got my touch sensor here. When I squeeze this, it will control the speed of this motor, which I've put a bit of tape on so you can see it spin. So, I'll grab this, and what I'm going to do, because I'm paranoid, this is insulating foam. I'm just going to put that underneath there so that it's not touching anything that could damage it. Prop this up. Can you see that nice and clearly? Good. Let's see. Let's see how we go. Turn the power on. Give it a few seconds to sort of boot up because this microcontroller takes like 5 seconds. Alright, let's take our sensor. Nothing. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Yeah. Hell yeah. So, as I explained earlier in the show, the power that's going into this device is actually going to determine the values in my code that I'm reading from this. So the way that the touch sensor works is it puts in a voltage into one side, and then the microcontroller listens to the voltage on the other side. Now, depending on how tightly I'm squeezing this will depend on how much voltage it allows to go through. So it basically, I read in the value, it'll be a number between 0 and 1,000. So if I'm not touching it, the number will be 0. If I am squeezing on it really hard, it'll be 1,000. However, that's in an ideal scenario. When you put in a certain power supply, it's going to change what power is. It might be more current, less current. If you're using batteries, it's going to be different to if you're using something like a standing power supply. So that number's going to change on you. Now, I've programmed it to be a very specific number range to test for a very specific pressure. However, now that we've actually shortened all the wires and put it all close together and everything, the power output has changed again to what it was when we actually had it on our prototype board. Because this board also uses a certain amount of power and things like that, which means my numbers have changed. So currently it's only recognizing one speed because all I've got to do is reprogram the microcontroller to adjust to the new number range that it is. And then it will all work again. The fact that I can turn it on and that I can get the motor spinning by actually touching it when it boots up. Means that it is working. It's only catching the very high range because I'm squeezing it quite tightly to get this to spin. So all I have to do is bring those numbers down a little bit so that it relies on more sensitivity. It doesn't have to be squeezed quite so tight, and then I'll have that speed control again. You can actually see earlier in the video, if you guys end up watching back, you can see the prototype board version working with the speed being controlled. So yeah, currently in its state now, it won't ramp because those values have changed, and the values are actually stored in the code on the microcontroller. So I can't adjust it here. I've got to take it upstairs, plug it into my computer, and change those values. Takes like 2 seconds, but I can't do that on the live stream because I'm in my garage at the moment. But the fact that me squeezing the pressure sensor makes the motor move at all, it basically means all that I've got to do is tweak those values and it'll be done. So the next time you see this, it'll actually be being hooked into this. I may actually do a live stream of building this handle because it's actually going to be quite a detailed build. It's going to hug the hand perfectly. It's going to have some brass gears on it, look all sort of steampunk. I've got to fit the tubing, the rubber tubing into it, and the nozzle system, because the nozzles have to be able to be taken out and changed so that they can be cleaned and things like that. It'll have nice leather padding on the inside so it's comfortable to hold. and it should be. Well, Kenneth, I'm glad that I amaze you, but if you watch the first part of this build, I explain all of this really clear terms, and the guys that were there really found it interesting and enlightening. So it might you might actually have the magic killed for you and be able to feel empowered yourself by understanding this sort of thing. So, oh yeah, absolutely. There's definitely going to be a video showing, at the very least, a video posted to the channel showing the finished thing being used. But now the electronics are done, and I can just reprogram it however I need. The next part of the build will actually be getting this looking pretty, because this is just a plywood template. It's a mock-up, just to make sure it fits the hand. I'm going to be building a nice one out of hardwood and all that. It's going to be really sexy by the time it's finished, because she's going to be holding it for like hours at a time. So I want it to be leather padded and have some rubber bits for nice grip, and I want to make it look steampunky. So there's going to be the little brass gears, maybe some copper tubing and things. And I really want it to look cool, because it's, when you're getting the henna tattoo, it's not just about having the tattoo at the end of it. It's about getting it done. It's like a performance art in itself. So if this thing looks good, I'm going to hide all the wires and circuitry and everything as best I can, so that it looks like it's some sort of steam-powered device, and it should come out quite cool. So yeah, I mean, I'll probably wrap the stream up here, but if you enjoyed yourselves and you learned a bit, don't forget that I am now on Coffee. So you just go to ko-fi.com, coffee.com/Valhalla Ironworks, and you could buy me a coffee and really help support what I do and future videos as well, because you know, that sort of thing really encourages me to do more. There will be a leatherworking video coming up very soon. I'm going to live stream the bit of leatherworking that I've got to do. I've got to make a patch for some of the crochet hooks that I made, and also a knife sheath for a knife that's going to a friend of mine in Germany. So that'll be an interesting one, because one's made of calf skin, one's going to be made of kangaroo leather, so it's two very different types of leather to work with, and I'm going to live stream that entire process as well. So, oh yeah, or that link that Sam has put in the description there. So that live stream will actually be coming sometime in the next few days. I don't really announce my live streams, so just, you'll be able to catch it in post anyway, because I sort of just do them as I get time. But I am very grateful for those of you who stuck around to watch this one. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did too. Hope you learned something. Yeah, this is a really cool build, and I like how it's turning out. It's really pleasing me quite a bit to see how well it's working. So thanks everyone for sticking around. Definitely, if you weren't here for the beginning of this particular live stream, check out the you know, the video in post and watch that first hour, because I do an amazing unboxing of a care package that Sam Towns sent to me that had just the most incredible stuff. It blew my mind, and I got a little bit emotional, to be honest. It was pretty cool. I heard my wife get home earlier, so I'm going to be going and showing her all of the stuff from that wonderful care package. But yeah, be sure to grab the next live stream if you're interested in leather working. I'm even going to be hand dyeing the leather of the knife sheath on the live stream. So all the stitching will be done, all of the awl work and the cutting of the leather, everything, shaping it, skiving it, the works. I do it all from scratch, just from raw materials with hand tools.